Are there public relations challenges that are unique to firms that are doing business primarily through new media, such as eBay does? And if so, what they are and how do you meet them?
Well, I think the challenge is social media today, it's constant and it's real time and everybody has a voice. And that's very different from traditional media and traditional journalism where you would build a relationship with a media outlet, build a relationship with a journalist, have a little more control and perhaps influence in the story, and it resulted in a final product. There was a story placed and that was often the end of it. And social media is 24/7. And instead of managing it, what I say to my team today is if the primary goal of media relations was to place an effective story and get your messages in the story and get your messages in how media was covering your company, today media is really a channel, a distribution channel to reach your end audience. And you really have to pay more attention today, I think, to who your end audience is. Because companies today have tools to be your own publisher. And you're not purely reliant on third parties. Media is still critically important and incredibly influential. But it's not the only way today that a company has to drive engagement with its stakeholders. You've got your own publishing platforms, you've got your own social media tools, and then your stakeholders are engaging in that as well. So today it's more about participating in a conversation and having a dialogue than placing a story. And that's a different dynamic today, and it requires more constant vigilance about what kind of conversations are happening about your business and which kind of stakeholders are engaged in your business and how are you responding. And it not only requires participating and responding, but it requires listening. And it really is more about having a conversation and participating in something rather than placing something and pushing something out.
What do you see as the greatest challenges facing public relations executives today, speaking in general terms, and how can these challenges be met?
Well, I think in large respect, I mean, obviously there's the communications technology is rapidly changing and how information is disseminated, how information is consumed, and it's challenging to stay abreast of that and understand it and understand what may be a fad versus what may be a permanent change. But I think broadly speaking for a chief communications officer, it's the challenges that face any business executive today, and that's the broader pace of change that's happening in the global business environment. And how do you stay abreast of that and the disruption that's happening in many industries and many companies? And how do you've got to understand, obviously you've got to understand communications and you've got to understand the communications environment you're working in, but it's critically important to understand the business environment that your organization is operating in. And what are the forces affecting that environment and creating disruption and innovation in that environment? And then how do you effectively adapt and innovate and stay ahead of the curve to effectively use communications as communications evolves to meet the business challenges that companies face today?
Well, that's a good lead-in for our next question, which is basically that the Arthur W. Page Center at Penn State and the Page Society, of which you're a member, their aim is to help individuals become counselors to leadership and all these areas of change that are happening in corporations today. How can individuals best prepare themselves for this role as counselors to leadership?
Yeah. Well, I think it goes beyond counseling today, particularly if you're in a chief communications officer role. And you have to deeply understand the business. I think increasingly today, and I work today in the technology environment, and there's constant change in technology and e-commerce, and you can be disrupted from so many different directions every day. And so you almost have to think like a general manager would, and really be deeply grounded in the business model, and what the business is trying to solve for. And then your role as a chief communications officer is to apply your communications expertise to how do we help address those business opportunities and business challenges. So I think it goes beyond an advisory role, and really to be effective in today's environment, you have to be a strategic business partner, and that means you have to be able to exhibit almost a general manager-like mindset and a general manager type understanding of the business and what the opportunities are. And then your role is to bring communication solutions to those business opportunities and business challenges.
What would you say the status of chief corporate communications persons is in this environment today? Is it growing in importance? Is it diminishing?
I think if you stop to think about companies you admire, companies you respect, companies that you see doing innovative things, I think more often than not you would see the chief communications officer role increasing in strategic importance in those companies. Our profession is rapidly changing and rapidly evolving, so every company is structured a little differently and modeled a little differently. But when I look across industries and across our competitive set and across the global business environment, companies that I see innovating and really driving effective change both with their employees and with their broader group of stakeholders, typically in those companies the chief communications officer role is increasing in strategic importance, not diminishing.
What are the most important issues, the enduring truths that you've learned in your career?
You got to keep it real. I mean, you've always got to, again, back to authenticity. What are we really trying to solve for, and are we simplifying it? Are we telling an authentic story in a transparent way? Are we delivering our messages? Are we really engaging with people? I think those are the universal truths, because when you don't do that, people get that. People understand that. And it undermines credibility, it undermines everything that good brands and great companies stand for. Great companies are typically values-driven companies. They have a strong set of principles, they have a strong set of values that they live by. Business cycles come and go. Companies have good times and companies have bad times. Great companies come through the bad time even stronger, because they're grounded in a clear set of values and what they believe in, and they're grounded in a clear set of ethics and operating principles. And that helps them weather downturns, the inevitable downturns in a business cycle, and come out stronger. And I think, in the communications profession, always digging down to what are we really trying to solve for? What's the real business issue here? What are we really trying to communicate? Who are we really trying to engage? Do we really understand who our intended audience is? And what action do we want them to take after they've heard our message and engaged with us? Those are critically important things to always keep in mind. You typically derail when you lose sight of those things.
What are the changes you've observed in the practice of public relations during your career? I think you might have alluded to some of this actually in your when you were talking about your career trajectory, but what are the significant changes that you've seen?
Well, I think that the most significant change I see is in leading companies, communications is becoming a core business strategy. And executives at these types of companies, operating management at these type of companies, see communications as a strategic operating tool and something that's essential to the business. And I think that's very different than when communications was seen as an afterthought, or communications was seen as more of a support function or a service function versus a strategic function in the organization. And so that change is very exciting. I am more excited. I've been in this for 25 years now. There's more opportunity and more innovation happening in our profession and in the communications world than I've ever seen. And that's incredibly exciting. I was having a conversation a few weeks ago with a friend. I was trying to imagine what it would be like to be in a journalism school today or in a communications program today. And I think it would be an extraordinary thing, because the opportunities you have as someone just starting out your career are exponentially greater than when I was going through school. When I was going through school, you either pick the editorial track or the advertising track. Yeah. And if you're on the editorial track, are you going into newspapers or are you going into broadcast? Right. And now it's like, well, how do I want to communicate? Do I want to be my own media outlet? I'll create my own blog and I'll be my own publisher and I'll create my own audience. Or how do I engage? How do I help shape new media? It's an incredibly exciting time. And I would encourage people just starting out in their career to embrace that. And one thing that I see now, being this far into my career, is you never stop learning, right? And there are a lot of external factors forcing you to reevaluate and rethink the way you do things. But I guess another universal truth is you've always got to fight complacency and inertia, right? You push yourself to innovate. Because that's what will help you grow and develop, and it'll make you a better communicator, and it'll make the organization you're working for a better organization. Always figure out where the next innovation is coming from and drive for that.